I never really fit into my own family's idea of important. I was the quiet one. The one who didn't argue, didn't interrupt, didn't make dramatic entrances at dinners just to prove a point. My stepfather used to joke that I was so harmless I could probably apologize to a chair if I bumped into it. He said it like it was funny. Everyone else laughed. I didn't. My mother, though, always had a different way of looking at me. She never called me weak. She called me selectively silent, like I was choosing when to speak and when to let people dig their own holes. I never understood what she meant until the day her message came through. It wasn't a normal call or text. It was the emergency code. 3 blinking symbols and a phrase only we knew from years ago, back when she first moved into the retirement community, supposedly a peaceful place full of luxury gardens, soft music, and people who spent most of their time arguing about tea temperatures and chair cushions. The code meant one thing: something is wrong, don't ask questions, just come. I arrived within hours. The place looked normal at first glance, almost too normal. Perfect lawns, polished walkways, retirees moving around in coordinated outfits like they were part of some strange, overly organized parade. But the energy was off. People were smiling too much, laughing too loudly, signing papers too eagerly. That's when I saw the first odd thing: a group of elderly residents lining up for something called premium oxygen memberships. A shiny kiosk was dispensing cards like it was some kind of luxury club, and people were actually paying for them. Free air. They were paying for breathing. And standing near the center of it all, acting like he owned the entire planet, was my stepfather. He was wearing a blazer 2 sizes too expensive for him, talking loudly about redefining senior lifestyle economics. No one questioned him. No one ever did. I stayed quiet, observing, just like always. But then something even stranger happened. A man approached me, not from the community, not from anywhere I recognized. Tall, calm, with eyes that didn't quite match human behavior. He introduced himself casually as if it were normal. He said he used to manage interstellar cargo routes before retiring here. Then he looked at the oxygen kiosk, tilted his head, and said completely seriously, "On 12 different planets, I have never seen anyone charge for air." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a scam. It was about to become something much bigger. I started watching everything more closely after that. My stepfather wasn't just selling nonsense, he was building an entire system around it. People weren't only buying premium oxygen memberships, they were upgrading them like they were streaming subscriptions. Bronze breath, silver breath, gold breath. And for the truly elite, there was something called platinum air, which supposedly included calming oxygen waves for emotional stability. Nobody questioned how air could have emotions. The alien man, he never gave me a proper name, just said names were temporary human labeling habits, walked beside me as I quietly followed the flow of transactions. He looked more confused the longer he observed the situation. "This is not fraud in the traditional sense," he muttered. "This is performance-based belief engineering." I almost laughed. That's a polite way of saying scam. He didn't deny it. We kept moving through the retirement community, blending in as best as possible. That wasn't hard, since everyone here was too busy upgrading their imaginary comfort levels to notice 2 people quietly judging the entire system. Then we reached the golf cart section. That's when things got even more ridiculous. My stepfather had apparently launched a side business called Luxury Mobility Experience Vehicles. The name alone should have been illegal. The carts themselves were standard retirement community vehicles, but he had added unnecessary upgrades to make them feel expensive. Fake leather seats, painted on gold trims, speakers that played engine noises like the carts were trying to pretend they were sports cars. One of them even had a sticker that said, 0 to 10 kilometers per hour in pure elegance. Retirees were actually paying extra for these modifications. Some were arguing about waitlists. The alien stared at one cart for a long time. "On my ship," he said slowly. Even the emergency escape pods are more luxurious than this, and they are designed to explode safely. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I laughed. Just once. Quiet, but real. That was when I noticed my mother watching from a distance. She didn't look surprised to see me. She looked relieved. She walked over and slipped something into my hand without saying a word. A small data chip. Old school, physical, deliberate. The kind of thing you only use when digital systems are not safe anymore. The emergency code wasn't for panic, she whispered. It was for timing. I frowned. Timing for what? She glanced toward my stepfather, who was currently convincing a group of retirees that executive air circulation privileges would improve their sleep cycles. For his downfall, she said simply. The alien leaned slightly closer to me. I believe, he said carefully, this man is what humans call confidently wrong. My mother smiled faintly. Oh no. He's confidently profitable. That's worse. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about scams or ridiculous golf carts. It was organized. It was expanding. And somehow, my quiet life had just been handed a very loud problem. After that, I stopped being just an observer. The data chip my mother gave me wasn't simple. It contained transaction logs, membership records, and contracts that made absolutely no sense unless you realized one important thing. Everything was designed to look legal while quietly draining money from every retiree in the community. And the worst part? They were proud of it. They genuinely believed they were investing in comfort, dignity, and enhanced aging experiences. The alien man helped me decode part of it. He called himself Chiron, after I finally insisted names were useful in emergencies. According to him, the entire system was structured like a layered deception economy. People were not just buying products, they were being emotionally trained to want more useless upgrades. It is impressive, he said, scanning the files. On my world, we needed advanced neural influence technology to achieve this level of compliance. Your stepfather did it with brochures and confidence. That sentence alone made me question humanity for a moment. But then we started organizing. And that's when things shifted. The retirees were not helpless. That was the mistake everyone kept making. They were bored, not broken. Once we quietly showed a few of them what was actually happening, something incredible began. Rage. Not chaotic rage, focused, surgical, extremely organized rage. A former accountant adjusted her glasses and said, "So he's been charging us for breathing and calling it premium?" A retired lawyer leaned forward and smiled in a way that made me feel sorry for my stepfather for the first time. That wording alone is enough to end his entire career. A former intelligence officer just said, "I miss surveillance. Let's do surveillance." Within a day, the community transformed into something else entirely. People who had been arguing about garden benches were now tracking invoices, documenting conversations, and pretending to attend oxygen upgrade seminars, just to gather evidence. And somehow, it was all coordinated through handwritten notes and whispered hallway meetings, like a retirement home version of an underground resistance movement. Meanwhile, my stepfather grew more confident. He started announcing expansion plans and public gatherings. Platinum Serenity breathing. Diamond air flow optimization. At one point he even introduced something called luxury emergency oxygen access, which he claimed would be useful during moments of emotional distress caused by insufficient premium tiers. No one clapped anymore. They just watched him. And I noticed something else too. Chiron was watching me more than him. Not in a casual way. In a thoughtful way. Like he was evaluating how I made decisions, how I stayed calm, how I never rushed. One evening, while we were going through more data, he said something unexpected. "You are not like the others here." I didn't look up. "I'm not retired yet." "That is not what I mean." I finally met his eyes. "Then what do you mean?" He paused. "You wait before you act. That is rare in your species." I almost laughed again. Around my stepfather, waiting is survival. For the first time, he smiled. Not a human smile, but close enough. And in that ridiculous, collapsing retirement empire full of fake oxygen and luxury golf carts, I realized something even more dangerous than the scam itself was forming. Trust. Strategy. And maybe something I wasn't ready to name yet. The day everything collapsed started like one of my stepfather's usual presentations. He had gathered the entire retirement community in the main hall, proudly standing in front of a giant holographic banner that read, "Next Generation Breathing Experience, Launch Event." He looked unstoppable. Confident. Loud. The kind of man who mistook volume for authority. I stood at the back with my mother. Chiron was beside me, unusually still. The retirees filled every seat, but this time none of them looked impressed. They looked ready. My stepfather opened with his usual speech about comfort, dignity, and elevating human existence to premium atmospheric access. He even joked about how people used to breathe for free like amateurs. And nobody laughed. That should have been his first warning. Then he announced the final product. Eternal Platinum Breath Package, complete with priority air streams and emotional oxygen calibration. That's when I stepped forward. Just one step. The room shifted instantly. Not because I was loud, I wasn't, but because I had never stepped forward before. I plugged in the data chip. The screen behind him flickered. Transaction logs appeared. Contracts. Payment trails. Fake upgrades. Duplicate charges for air. Retirees saw their own names. Their own money. Their own signatures attached to nonsense agreements labeled luxury breathing consent forms. A silence dropped so hard it felt physical. My stepfather laughed nervously. "This is clearly a misunderstanding, some kind of system glitch." Then the accountant raised her hand. "It's not a glitch," she said calmly. "It's theft with branding." The lawyer stood next. "And poorly written theft at that." The intelligence officer added, "We've been documenting everything for weeks." At that moment, the entire room turned into something else. Not chaos, control. Organized, calm accountability. Retirees stood up one by one, revealing printed evidence, recordings, and confirmations of every ridiculous charge. My stepfather's voice started breaking. "You don't understand business." Chiron finally spoke, stepping forward. His voice was quiet, but it carried. "On multiple worlds, we have classifications for this behavior. Yours would be labeled, confidently monetizing nothing." A few people actually laughed. That was the end. The authorities arrived minutes later, called by the community itself. No dramatic chase. No explosion. Just paperwork, recordings, and overwhelming proof. My stepfather kept trying to explain his vision, but no one was listening anymore. Even the fake luxury golf carts outside suddenly looked like what they always were, painted lies on wheels. When it was over, the retirement community didn't fall apart. It reset. Membership fees were cancelled. Oxygen, tiers, were abolished. The ridiculous golf cart empire was converted into a shared transport system no one had to pay for. Someone even put up a sign that said, "Breathing is included." My mother squeezed my hand for a long time after everything settled. Chiron stood beside me, watching the chaos turn into peace. "You were right," he said softly. "Quiet people are dangerous." I looked at him. "Only when they finally decide to speak." He nodded, like he understood something deeper than the words. As the community slowly returned to normal life, this time slightly more honest, slightly more embarrassed, I realized something simple. My stepfather thought I was just the quiet daughter. He wasn't wrong. He just never understood that quiet doesn't mean harmless.